Welcome back to Lads Hub. Today, we're diving into a topic that impacts not only the ocean, but the entire planet: climate change. The ocean covers over 70% of Earth's surface, and it plays a crucial role in regulating the planet. Welcome back to Lads Hub. Today, we're diving into a topic that impacts not only the ocean, but the entire planet: climate change. The ocean covers over 70% of Earth's surface, and it plays a crucial role in regulating the planet's climate, supporting life, and absorbing carbon dioxide. But as we continue to emit greenhouse gases and raise global temperatures, the ocean is bearing a massive burden. When we think of climate change, we often focus on land, extreme weather, melting glaciers, and warming temperatures. But the ocean is where some of the most serious consequences are already taking shape. Over the past few decades, our oceans have absorbed more than 90% of the heat trapped by greenhouse gases. And while this has kept temperatures on land from rising even faster, it's had some devastating effects beneath the waves. One of the most visible impacts of warming oceans is coral bleaching. Corals are incredibly sensitive to temperature changes. Just a degree or two higher can cause them to expel the algae they rely on, turning them white and lifeless. Bleaching not only affects corals, but the entire marine ecosystem that depends on them. Coral reefs support about 25% of all marine species, so their decline puts countless other species at risk. Beyond the reefs, rising ocean temperatures also disrupt entire food chains. Fish are forced to migrate to cooler waters, which affects species that rely on them for food and impacts human communities that depend on fishing. Warmer waters also lower oxygen levels, making it harder for marine life to survive. This de-oxygenation creates what scientists call dead zones, areas where very few organisms can live. The ocean is also a global conveyor belt, with currents that transport warm and cold water around the globe, helping to regulate weather patterns. But as we pump more heat into the ocean, these currents are beginning to slow. A major current slowdown would mean more extreme weather events, from hurricanes to droughts. It's not just marine life that's threatened. Our way of life is at stake. So, when we talk about climate change, it's clear that the ocean is at the center of it all. The question we have to ask ourselves is, what will happen if we continue on this path? We're going to dive into these risks, the consequences, and what we can still do to protect the ocean and our future. Let's start at the very bottom of the food chain: phytoplankton. These tiny organisms are like plants for the ocean. They use sunlight to produce energy and are eaten by small animals like zooplankton, which then feed larger fish and eventually apex predators. Phytoplankton is also essential because it produces about 50% of the oxygen we breathe. But as temperatures rise, phytoplankton struggles to survive. Warmer waters slow down their ability to photosynthesize and reduce nutrients in the water. This means less food for the creatures that depend on them, which has a ripple effect up the food chain. Next in line, we have small fish, species like sardines, anchovies, and krill that eat zooplankton. These species are essential for bigger fish, seabirds, and marine mammals. But as the base of their food chain is threatened, their populations start to shrink. Now here's where it really impacts larger predators. Tuna, sharks, whales, and other big fish rely heavily on smaller fish for food. As those populations decrease, larger predators have to work harder to find food. They might have to travel further, migrate to cooler waters, or face the possibility of starvation. This shift in migration has huge consequences. When species are forced to move, it disrupts the regions they leave and the new ecosystems they enter. For example, predators like tuna moving away from tropical waters affects local fishing industries that rely on them. Coral reefs play a huge role in the food chain. They provide a habitat and food source for about 25% of all marine life. But with rising temperatures, coral bleaching is becoming more common. When corals bleach, they lose the algae they depend on and become vulnerable, often leading to their death. Another large impact of high carbon emissions is ocean acidification. When the ocean absorbs CO2, it becomes more acidic, which harms species with calcium carbonate shells, like oysters, clams, and coral reefs. Coral reefs are especially vulnerable because acidification weakens their structure, making it difficult for them to grow and sustain life. If we continue at our current rate of climate change, the next 50 years could bring dramatic and potentially irreversible changes to our planet, especially in the oceans. Here's a look at what scientists predict. With temperatures rising, polar ice caps and glaciers are melting at a faster rate. By 2070, we could see sea levels rise significantly, leading to coastal erosion and increased flooding. This would affect millions of people in coastal cities, forcing relocations and putting enormous pressure on infrastructure and resources. Also, please like and subscribe for more educational documentaries. The ocean will continue to absorb much of the heat trapped by greenhouse gases, causing average ocean temperatures to rise even more. The loss of these species would ripple up the food chain, impacting fish populations and ultimately human food sources. Additionally, climate refugees will increase as people are forced to move away from uninhabitable areas, causing strain on cities and governments worldwide. Several low-lying countries and coastal regions are at serious risk of going underwater or experiencing major flooding in the coming decades due to rising sea levels caused by climate change. Here are some of the most vulnerable. The Maldives, a tropical paradise of over 1,000 islands in the Indian Ocean, is one of the lowest-lying countries in the world, with an average elevation of only about 1.5 meters, 5 feet, above sea level. Rising sea levels threaten to submerge many of the islands, potentially making the country uninhabitable within the next few decades. We need to do something now, otherwise areas like these will be gone before we know it. Bangladesh is already prone to severe flooding, and much of the country sits just above sea level. With a dense population and heavy reliance on coastal agriculture, rising sea levels could displace millions of people and impact food security. Coastal areas like the Sundarbans, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and home to Bengal tigers, are particularly at risk. Located in the central Pacific Ocean, Kiribati is another low-lying island nation vulnerable to sea level rise. The government has already started purchasing land in Fiji to relocate its population in case the islands become uninhabitable. Though a developed nation with advanced water management systems, about 1/3 of the Netherlands lies below sea level, and 60% of its population lives in flood-prone areas. The Dutch have built extensive dikes and storm surge barriers, but with rising sea levels, these systems will need ongoing upgrades to keep pace with. The Philippines is highly vulnerable to sea level rise and extreme weather, such as typhoons, which are becoming more intense with climate change. Cities like Manila and other low-lying coastal communities could see frequent flooding, putting millions of people at risk. The entire world is not projected to be underwater, but significant portions of coastal regions and low-lying islands are at risk of submersion or frequent, severe flooding due to rising sea levels. Sea level rise is driven by melting glaciers, polar ice melt, and the thermal expansion of seawater as it warms. To protect and preserve our oceans, urgent and comprehensive action is needed on multiple fronts. First, we must tackle plastic pollution by implementing stricter regulations on single-use plastics and improving waste management systems worldwide. ensuring that more plastics are recycled and fewer end up in the ocean. Additionally, there is a pressing need to reduce the impact of climate change, as rising ocean temperatures and ocean acidification threaten marine ecosystems. Governments must accelerate efforts to curb greenhouse gas emissions and invest in renewable energy sources. Thanks for watching. The ocean is our planet's lifeblood, and its health is directly tied to the well-being of all living things. As we've seen, climate change is taking a toll on our oceans in ways that affect everything from marine life to global weather patterns. But the good news is, we can still make a difference. Please like and subscribe for more in future.